Norfolk native and graduate of Norview High School, Old Dominion University, and VCU, sports writer Harry Minium has provided in-depth reporting to readers in Hampton Roads for nearly 5 decades. He focused on local sports, from high schools to the Norfolk Admirals, but also covered Virginia and Virginia Tech football and basketball. The son of a Navy chief and a school teacher and captain of his high school football team, Minium began his career at the Richmond News-Leader before joining the Virginia Pilot in 1979, where he worked for 39 years. Minium was a sports writer and columnist for 23 years before moving to the news side, where he covered Norfolk City Council and Virginia's General Assembly. In 2012, he returned to the sports department, where his focus turned to ODU football. In 2013, he won a first-place award in the Football Writers of America writing competition for his behind-the-scenes story on how ODU made the decision to move up to the FBS level, one of more than 30 writing awards he has won. He was twice nominated by the Pilot for the Pulitzer Prize. Minium made the jump to intercollegiate athletics in 2018, serving as senior executive writer for ODU Athletics. Harry has been on Christian missions to Haiti and Berlin, Germany. He has 2 daughters, Amy and Ginny. At age 70, he ran in the 2023 Berlin Marathon wearing an I Run for Ginny t-shirt. Ginny passed away in 2000.
I want to start, I'm going to go off, I wrote my speech, a writer, and I wrote it, it's long, by the way. But I'm going to go off script just a little bit. Will Driscoll. So I was covering the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame for the Virginian Pilot when it was on life support. It was in bad shape. And Will came in 6 years ago and he righted the ship. Thank you, Will, for helping to save this organization. You've done a great job, and good luck at LifeNet. So I was here 8 years ago when Jerry Linquist was inducted to this Hall of Fame, and I'm always remembered what he said. To some people, this may not be that big a deal, but to me, this is truly a big deal. This means a lot. And it means a lot to me. It means everything to me. My heart is so full of joy. Thank you. It is an incredible honor to have been on the stage with all the people this morning at the breakfast, and to be in the same Hall of Fame with Bruce Smith, Frank Beamer, and ODU legends such as Dave Twardzik and Wendy Larry. This morning at the Hall of Fame breakfast, I was sitting between Joe Smith and Dan Bonner and got to know them a lot better, and I'm really short, by the way, compared to them. But that's when it finally hit me that I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame with 372 of Virginia's finest sportsmen and sportswomen, and wonderful sports writers like David Teal and Jerry Ratcliffe and others who are members of this hall. Thank you to the entire Hall of Fame to the Hall of Fame board. That's why I was a reporter, writer, and not a broadcaster. Thank you to my colleagues from the Virginia Pilot, so many of them who are here. I still think of the Pilot as my newspaper. It always will be. Thank you to Nelson Brown, my former editor. He saved my job at the Pilot, saved my career, and Nelson can't be here, but I'm sure he'll watch us online. Thank you, Nelson. I want to thank my entire family, obviously. My friends from Norview High School, class of 1971, who are here. Dennis Elmer, by the way, was in our class in high school. Pete Decker, Mike O'Toole, Martin Thomas Jr., you guys know I love you. And to the family of Sonny Allen, thank you for coming here from Texas and North Carolina. I met Billy, Jackie, and the rest of the family when I was campaigning to get their father into the Sports Hall of Fame. Their father, Sonny Allen, of course, won the ODU's first national championship in 1975. And he was an idol of mine when I was a student at ODU. We've become so close ever since, the Allen family, and I'm part of their family, so thank you for coming. Athletic Director Jim Jarrett, who can't be here tonight, but Wood Seelig, who can't be here tonight. but I'm sure he'll watch this. Thank you for making the bold decision to hire me. I mean, 7 years ago, a lot of people were wondering, what the hell are you doing? This guy has written all this nasty stuff about us, and you're hiring him to write for our webpage. But Wood was ahead of his time. He realized that ODU needed to tell its own story better, and I really appreciate that. I also want to thank my boss, Carolyn Crutchfield, better known as Coop, who's an awesome boss and a Notre Dame graduate. I mentioned she's from Notre Dame because one of my favorite quotes of all time comes from Lou Holtz, former Notre Dame coach. Show me someone who has done something worthwhile, and I'll show you someone who has overcome adversity. My parents, Harry Minium Sr. and Sadie Williams Minium, had a ton of adversity. My mom grew up dirt poor and just outside of Wilmington, North Carolina, in a house with a dirt floor with 8 brothers and sisters. Her parents both died before she was a teenager. We were a blue-collar family. My parents worked hard. They taught their kids to work hard and to love each other. I wonder what they would be thinking tonight if they were here. They would be so proud. I'm a Christian, and I know they're in a much better place and somehow are aware that their son is experiencing this awesome honor. And aside here, I was a terrible student at Norview High School. I was awful. So I'm senior English, I had a 53 average, and it took 70 to pass. And so anyone from Virginia Beach knows Bob Tater, right? He was our head football coach. He walks into my English teacher and says, give Harry a break. He was a good football player. And so she passed me. So who knows what would have happened if I'd had to go to summer school. So Pam Hughes was in my senior English class as captain of the cheerleaders. She's in the back, and my first story in the pilot appeared that she called me and she said, "You're a writer?" So I was in Evansville, Indiana in 1975 as an ODU student, watching ODU win the national championship. 10 years later, I was in Austin, Texas, covering the ODU women win their 3rd national championship. So how did I make this transformation from super fan to being impartial? I found it difficult. You have to suppress your feelings, and you have to be professional. But as a journalist, that's your obligation. You're the eyes and ears of fans who can't go to the press conferences, who don't get to see practice, who don't have privy to the information you have. You have to be able to tell the truth. You have to write the hard stories to portray things as they really are. There are times when I read stories that hurt me. I had to write a story about a head coach's son at Old Dominion who had gotten in trouble with the law, and it just felt horrible, but that's your job. And I think, David, I think you'll understand this. A lot of people think being a sports writer is a cake job, that you just show up to games, you get the best seats, and you get free meals, and that's all true. But as my friends from the pilot will tell you, it can be a back-breaking profession. When I covered Virginia Tech football and UVA basketball at the same time, and man, that was really nice to cover. Virginia Tech football under Frank Beamer was really good, and UVA basketball, they've almost always been good. I was away from home 30 weekends in the fall and winter. I often worked 7 days a week, and that was hard on my family, and I'm so thankful that my family was patient about that. And things haven't changed that much since I moved to ODU. Everyone in athletics, we all work hard, no matter what you do. I've loved sports since I was old enough to throw a ball. I love the sound of cheering crowds and the smell of concession stands. I still get goosebumps at big games, even if I have no rooting interest. If someone comes back and wins, I'm still into it. My reading audience has always included passionate fans, whether it's Norfolk State, Virginia Tech, or Old Dominion. When you go to a game, you're part of a family. The family of fans rooting for your school. And when you are celebrating a victory, you're celebrating each other. That's what makes sports so special. I've always gravitated toward the Cinderellas and the underdogs, which is why I like ODU, I guess. Writing stories about those who've overcome great odds have been my passion, as Lou Holtz said. Those stories resonate with me in some ways because I've walked in their footsteps. In 1999, I was mugged after covering a Virginia Tech football game, and that's right, mugged. I was beaten with clubs and tossed through a privacy fence. It's a long story. 4 guys went to jail, however. I caught them beating up someone. So that night, when I was being stitched up at DePaul Hospital, my daughter Jenny, my mother, and my brother Mike were all standing around me. 2 years later, they would all be dead. In June of 2000, a young man entered our home and administered a lethal dose of heroin to my daughter Jenny. Losing a child causes unbearable pain. It's something I can't begin to describe. I think of Jenny every day, sometimes several times a day, and the grieving doesn't end, it just gets more tolerable. My work of telling good stories about great people has helped me endure my grief. 10 months after losing Jenny, my mother died after suffering an aneurysm. A few days after that, my brother Mike died of cancer. And aside here, this is a happy aside. My happiest days as a journalism occurred in the 1980s when I was covering high school football. And Mike Smith, wherever you are, that includes some of your games. Yes, yes. We were there when, my brother and I were there when Rhine-Earth passed to Rhine-Earth and Norview beat you in the region finals. I don't know whether you remember that game. So, anyway, it was nothing cooler than interviewing a coach with your brother next to you, helping you with the interview. Mike's wife, Patty, is here with a ton of her kids, Mike, Hannah, Margaret, Alice, and, of course, her husband, Mike. She lost a Mike and married a Mike. He was a great, great father to my nephew and nieces. My youngest brother, Tim, disappeared overseas 8 or 9 years ago, and we don't know where he is or whether he's alive. So this has all been a heavy weight. But God gave me the strength to carry on and to have a productive life. 3 years ago, I was at a low point in my life, and I decided a Christian mission would be a good thing for me, and this kind of stole my thunder on that, but that's okay. I spent a month caring and feeding for Ukrainian refugees in Berlin, and I made a lot of good friends in Germany. I really identified with the people there. A year later, I returned to running the Berlin Marathon, and I run for Jenny's shirt, and for whatever reason, it helped me put aside a lot of the demons that have followed me in my life, and I found that forgiveness is the greatest blessing. If you can't forgive those who've hurt you, they continue to hurt you. While I was working with refugees, I made friends with a young Muslim lady named Nancy. And I told her I wanted to write about my experience here for the Virginian Pilot. And I said I need to speak to a translator because they're the ones who really have the tough jobs here. And she said, you will speak with Kirsten, and Kirsten only. So her name was Kirsten Basler, and when I first met her for the interview, she took off her mask. This was right after the pandemic. And I said, wow. But I said it out loud. I said, wow. So she didn't say anything about it. As a matter of fact, she didn't speak much English then. We had a great interview, and then she contacted me on WhatsApp, and we talked about the story as we edited it, and then afterwards, we just started talking. I visited Berlin many times in the interim, and eventually we began a romantic relationship, and it's changed my life. Kirsten has given me hope and happiness that I had not experienced before. Kirsten traveled 4,000 miles to be here tonight, and I hope I say this correctly. Ich liebe dich, mein Schatzi, du bist die Liebe meines Lebens. Do you people speak German? Did you know what I said? Okay. Finally, I want to say, and sorry, this is going to be a shameless plug, for ODU, my alma mater, an institution that I truly love that does great work. It's an R13 the institution that has great health sciences, great engineering, and all that, and that's all wonderful, but the thing that Old Dominion does best is it takes students who are not particularly done well in high school, who are from families who've never graduated from college, and it graduates those kids. About 1,000 kids each year at ODU are first-gen graduates, and that's God's work. No one does that in the state of Virginia like ODU, perhaps other than Norfolk State, Marty. So, yes, yeah. I know there's a ton of cynicism about college athletics, and I'm very cynical about things. The NIL and the transfer portal have changed everything, and I mean, for coaches, it really sucks now. It's bad, but I want you to know that ODU is focused now on the right things, and that's primarily the welfare of its 450 student athletes. ODU has invested millions of dollars into providing mental health counseling, academic counseling, nutritional support, and guidance on what happens after you graduate. ODU cares for its people. Ted Alexander, voice of the Monarchs, recently took almost 3 months off to be with his wife, who was dying of cancer. I always family first would told him when he asked for the time off. I love working for ODU and feel privileged to be able to tell the stories about our athletes and coaches. I'm 72 years old and life remains hard, as always. Life is hard for all of us, but it's very good, and tonight it got a whole lot better. This is truly an unforgettable night for me. I will always cherish. I can't thank you all enough. Thank you.